The morning sun had only just broken through the gray clouds when Clara stood in the marble kitchen of the grand mansion. Her hands were red from scrubbing, her apron damp, and her back sore from a night of restless sleep. To the billionaire's family, she was just a maid, invisible, replaceable, and voiceless. But to herself, Clara held on to dignity. She whispered prayers each morning, not for riches but for strength. She had been working in the mansion for 3 years, serving with loyalty. She knew the billionaire's secrets, his routines, even his temper. She had raised his tea when he was sick, calmed his mother when her memory slipped into confusion, and comforted his twin sons when their father's voice thundered down the hallways. Yet, despite her sacrifices, respect was something she was never granted. That morning, the air felt heavier. Something was wrong. The billionaire entered the hall, his expensive shoes clicking sharply on the floor. His face was stern, his eyes cold, his voice cutting. "Clara," he said, holding up a velvet box. "Do you care to explain how this ended up missing from my study?" Her eyes widened. The box, one she had never seen, was already open, its contents gone. "Sir, I don't understand. I didn't. Don't play innocent with me," he roared, his voice echoing through the mansion. Servants froze. The twins peeked from behind the staircase, their faces pale. Clara's chest tightened. "I swear, I would never take anything from this house. I've given everything I have to serve you." But the billionaire's face darkened further. He wasn't looking for truth. He was looking for someone to blame. To him, the idea of a poor maid stealing was far easier to believe than facing the truth of his own household. By noon, the accusation had become scandal. Whispers filled the mansion. Servants looked at her differently. Some pitied her, most avoided her. For them, siding against the master meant risking their jobs. Clara stood alone. The police arrived in the evening, their boots tracking mud across the polished marble. "You've been accused of theft," the officer said flatly. "You'll need to appear in court." Her knees trembled. Court? She had no lawyer, no money, no family to defend her. The thought of standing before a judge, against the billionaire's army of attorneys, made her heart sink. The twins tugged at their father's sleeve. "Papa, she didn't do it," one whispered. But the billionaire silenced them with a glare that made them retreat in fear. That night, Clara sat alone on her narrow bed in the servants' quarters. The walls felt like they were closing in. Her hands shook as she folded the only dress she owned decent enough to wear to court. Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "If I am to stand alone, then I will stand with truth," she thought. The day of the trial came too quickly. The courthouse loomed like a fortress, its stone walls towering above her. Inside, the courtroom was already filled with murmurs. On one side sat the billionaire in a tailored suit, his lawyers surrounding him like vultures. On the other side, an empty chair awaited Clara. When the bailiff called her name, her steps echoed in the silence. Every eye turned to her, some with scorn, some with pity, none with hope. She stood at the defendant's table, her hands clasped together, her eyes fixed on the ground. She had no one by her side. The judge entered, robes flowing, voice stern. "Let the proceedings begin." The billionaire's lawyer rose, his tone dripping with confidence. He painted Clara as a cunning thief who had taken advantage of the family's trust. Every word was a dagger. Clara's heart pounded, but when it was her turn, she lifted her chin. "I did not steal," she said firmly, her voice trembling but clear. "I have nothing but my hands and my honesty. I serve that house as if it were my own. I have nothing to hide." Laughter rippled through the courtroom. The billionaire smirked, confident the trial was already his. But Clara stood straighter. For years she had bowed, obeyed, and endured humiliation. Today, even if the world laughed, she would not break. The judge leaned forward. "Without a lawyer, do you understand what you are facing?" "Yes, Your Honor," she replied. "But the truth doesn't need wealth to stand. It only needs a voice." Her words silenced the room for a moment. But soon the lawyer struck again, twisting every sentence, mocking her lack of evidence. Clara clenched her fists under the table. It seemed hopeless. And then, The great wooden doors of the courtroom creaked open. Heads turned. The sound of two sets of footsteps echoed down the aisle. The billionaire's twin sons entered, dressed in dark suits, their expressions steady and solemn. Gasps spread through the courtroom. They walked past their father without looking at him, past the lawyers, past the whispers. They stopped beside Clara, their small hands resting gently on her arm. For the first time since the trial began, Clara's eyes widened, not in fear, but in hope. The younger twin looked up at the judge. "We want to speak." The older one nodded firmly. "We came to tell the truth." The courtroom erupted in shock. Even the billionaire's face froze, disbelief flashing in his eyes. His own sons, standing with the maid he had accused. The judge raised a hand for silence. "Very well. The court will hear what you have to say." Clara's heart pounded. For the first time, she wasn't standing alone. And for the first time, the billionaire looked uncertain. The courtroom fell into stunned silence. Even the ceiling fans seemed to pause as the billionaire's twin sons stepped forward. Their shoes tapped softly against the polished wood floor, a sound that cut through the heavy tension like a drumbeat. All eyes followed them. Two boys carrying more courage in their small frames than most grown men dared to. They stopped right beside Clara, ignoring the icy glare of their father. "Your Honor," the older twin said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "We ask permission to testify." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Testify? Against your father?" "Yes," the younger replied, lifting his chin. "Because the truth matters more than fear." Whispers exploded across the courtroom. Lawyers exchanged uneasy glances. The billionaire's face hardened, his jaw clenched so tight it looked carved from stone. "Silence in the court," the judge barked, slamming the gavel. The murmurs died instantly. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing at the billionaire. "Do you object to your children speaking?" The billionaire hesitated, his pride warring with his control. Finally, he growled, "They're just children. They don't understand the seriousness of this matter." But the older twin spoke again, his voice sharp as glass. "We understand perfectly. We understand better than you, Father." Gasps rang out. The judge, intrigued, motioned them to the witness stand. The twins climbed up, their small hands gripping the wooden railing. For a moment, the entire courtroom seemed to lean in closer, waiting. The older one began. "We've known Clara for years. She didn't just work in our house. She took care of us. She stayed awake when we were sick. She read to us when no one else would. She even saved our grandmother when she wandered into the street one night." His voice cracked with emotion, but he didn't stop. "She would never steal. Not ever." The younger twin added, "We saw her that day too. She was in the kitchen, cleaning, the whole time Father said the box went missing. She couldn't have taken it." The billionaire slammed his palm against the table. "Enough. This is absurd." But the judge silenced him with a glare. "Sit down, Mr. Harrington. You will not interrupt your sons." The billionaire froze, his authority slipping through his fingers like sand. His lawyers fidgeted nervously. The courtroom leaned into the twins, every word. Their testimony wasn't rehearsed, wasn't polished, but it was raw and honest, and more powerful than any argument the billionaire's expensive attorneys could craft. The older twins' eyes shimmered with tears. "Do you know what Father said when he told us Clara stole?" he asked the judge quietly. "He said poor people are always thieves, that they can't be trusted." Clara's breath caught in her throat. The courtroom erupted again, voices overlapping in shock and outrage. The judge's gavel thundered down. "Order! Order in the court!" The younger twin turned his gaze toward the judge. "But we know that's not true. Clara has less than anyone in this room, yet she gave us more love than we've ever gotten from our own father." The word struck the courtroom like a lightning bolt. Even the lawyers shifted uncomfortably, avoiding the billionaire's glare. The billionaire's face darkened, a storm of rage and disbelief. "You ungrateful little—" "Silence!" the judge thundered, his patience snapping. "One more outburst, Mr. Harrington, and you will be removed from this courtroom." The billionaire's lips tightened, but for once, he said nothing. The twins continued, their voices overlapping, weaving a story that shattered the image of their father's authority. They spoke of Clarara's kindness, her sacrifices, the nights she stayed hungry so they could eat, the mornings she smiled despite her exhaustion. "She is not the thief," the older one said firmly, turning to face the entire courtroom. "She is the only honest person in that house." A heavy silence followed. It was the kind of silence that wasn't empty, but charged, like the pause before thunder shakes the sky. Clarara's eyes brimmed with tears. She had walked into this courtroom alone, prepared to be crushed by power, by lies, by the weight of money. And yet here were the billionaire's own sons, standing like shields before her. The billionaire's lawyers scrambled, whispering furiously, flipping through papers, searching for strategy. But how could they fight truth spoken by innocence? The judge finally leaned back, his expression unreadable. "The court has heard the testimony of the witnesses. Their words carry weight beyond their years." He glanced toward Clarara, then back at the billionaire. "But the evidence must still be weighed. This case is far from decided." The courtroom buzzed with renewed tension. Clarara's heart raced. She had been given a lifeline, but the storm was not over. The billionaire rose to his feet slowly, his smile cold and venomous. "Your Honor, may I request permission to speak?" The judge hesitated, then nodded. "Proceed." The billionaire's voice dripped with mockery. "My sons are children. They have been manipulated by a servant who knows how to twist sympathy to her favor. She is clever, yes, but cunning. And I will prove it." He turned, his gaze locking on Clarara, like a predator stalking prey. "If you're truly innocent, Clarara, then explain, why was the missing velvet box found hidden beneath your bed?" The courtroom gasped. Clarara's knees nearly buckled. Her mind spun. Hidden beneath her bed? How? When? The billionaire's smirk widened. "Check the records. The police found it themselves. Open and shut." The twin boys leapt from the witness stand. "That's a lie," the younger shouted, tears streaking his cheeks. "She didn't." "Silence." The judge thundered again. Clarara's breath came in short bursts. A trap. She had walked into a trap. Someone had planted it. And now, despite the boys' brave testimony, the case was twisting back against her. The billionaire leaned back in his chair, confidence returning, pride glowing in his eyes. "Your Honor, the poor maid will say anything. But evidence does not lie." The judge frowned, rubbing his temple. The courtroom was now a battlefield of doubt and truth, of wealth against innocence. Clarara closed her eyes, whispering to herself, "God, give me strength." And then, just as despair began to creep in her chest again, the older twin stepped forward, his voice trembling but fierce. "We know who put that box there." The courtroom gasped again. The younger twin nodded firmly. "And we'll prove it." Every head turned toward them, the suspense snapping like a taut string. Clarara's eyes widened in shock. The billionaire froze, his mask of confidence cracking for the first time. The truth was about to erupt. The older twin's words struck the courtroom like thunder. "We know who put that box under Clarara's bed," he repeated, his young voice echoing against the vaulted ceiling. The judge leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "Explain yourself, boy." The billionaire shot to his feet. "Your Honor, this is outrageous. They're children. They don't." "Sit down, Mr. Harrington," the judge barked, gavel slamming like a gunshot. "You've had your chance to speak. Now, your sons will be heard." The billionaire froze, fury boiling beneath his skin, but he obeyed. The older twin took a shaky breath, his hand gripping the railing of the witness stand so tightly his knuckles whitened. "We saw it. We saw one of Father's men, the butler, Mr. Reeves, carrying the box the night before. We didn't know what it was at first, but we saw him go into Clarara's room when she wasn't there." The younger twin nodded quickly. "We didn't say anything because we were scared. Father told us never to speak against the staff he trusts. But when Clarara was accused, we realized it was all planned." A stunned silence spread like wildfire. The billionaire's lawyers shifted uncomfortably, their carefully crafted arguments collapsing before their eyes. The judge's gaze snapped toward the billionaire. "Is this true?" Did your butler have access to the maid's quarters? The billionaire's lips curled. This is nonsense. Reeves is loyal. He would never. But before he could finish, the heavy courtroom doors opened once more. A uniformed officer stepped inside, holding a sealed evidence bag. Your Honor, he said, his voice firm, we reopened the investigation, and the boy's claim is correct. Fingerprints on the velvet box match Reeves, not Clara. The billionaire's face drained of color. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. The judge's gavel struck again, demanding silence. Clara's chest heaved, her eyes filling with tears. She clutched her apron, whispering a prayer of gratitude. She wasn't alone anymore. Truth had finally spoken louder than money. The older twin turned toward the judge, his voice breaking. Father made him do it. We heard him. He told Reeves to take care of the problem and make sure Clara was blamed. The billionaire roared, leaping to his feet. Lies. All lies. Their children, manipulated, confused. The judge's eyes were sharp as steel. Enough, Mr. Harrington. You stand accused not only of false testimony, but of orchestrating evidence tampering. Do you deny ordering your staff to frame this woman? The billionaire's composure shattered. She's just a maid, he spat, voice rising with desperation. And nobody, do you think anyone will believe her over me? I own this city, this court, this... Silence, the judge thundered, gavel striking so hard it echoed like thunderclaps. In this court, no man owns the truth. The billionaire's words died on his tongue. His empire of arrogance crumbled before him, brick by brick. The judge turned toward Clara, his tone softening. Miss Clara, you have endured humiliation, lies, and betrayal. This court finds you not guilty of all charges. You are free to go, with your name cleared and your dignity intact. Tears streamed down Clara's cheeks. Her knees weakened, and she gripped the table for support. For the first time in weeks, the weight crushing her chest lifted. She was free. The twins ran to her side, wrapping their arms around her waist. We told you we'd help, the younger whispered, his small voice breaking into sobs. Clara knelt, embracing them both tightly. You saved me, she whispered, her voice trembling with gratitude. You saved the truth. The courtroom erupted, some in applause, others in murmurs of disbelief. But no one could deny what had just happened. The billionaire had been undone by the very sons he thought he controlled. The judge's voice cut through the noise. As for you, Mr. Harrington, this court will pursue charges of perjury and conspiracy to obstruct justice. You are no longer above the law. The billionaire's face twisted, fury and humiliation boiling in his veins. He tried to rise, but officers stepped forward, placing firm hands on his shoulders. For the first time, the mighty billionaire sat powerless. Clara stood, wiping her tears. Her gaze shifted toward him, not with hatred, but with quiet strength. You tried to break me, she said softly, so only he could hear. But the truth doesn't bow to wealth. He glared at her, but her words pierced deeper than any lawyer's argument. As the trial ended, Clara stepped out of the courthouse, the cool breeze washing over her like a blessing. Reporters swarmed, cameras flashed, but she kept her head high. The twins clung to her hands, their small faces glowing with pride. The sun was setting, casting golden rays over the courthouse steps. For Clara, it wasn't just the end of a trial, it was the beginning of freedom. She had walked in as a maid accused, alone and powerless. She walked out as a woman who had faced down a giant, and won. The twins looked up at her. Will you stay with us? The older asked, his voice timid, afraid of losing her. Clara smiled, brushing their hair back gently. I'll always be there when you need me. But today, you proved you don't need me to protect you anymore. You protected me. The younger twin squeezed her hand tighter. We'll never let anyone hurt you again. Her heart swelled. In a world where money bought silence, it was the innocent voices of two children that had carried truth. Behind them, the billionaire was led away in disgrace, his empire of power cracking beneath the weight of justice. And Clara? She walked into the twilight with her head held high, knowing that sometimes, just sometimes, the poor could win against the powerful, not with wealth or armies of lawyers, but with courage, honesty, and the strength of love. For the first time in her life, Clara didn't feel like just a maid. She felt seen. She felt heard. She felt free.